Then there is, for me, a whole other kind of science of communication through visual interfaces.
Yeah.
And very early in my career, I read a book about efficient dashboard design. It helped me a lot. It helped me a lot create appealing dashboards that communicated the data that's inside quite efficiently to my clients, and I think this had an effect on my career eventually. And an advice which I give to especially the younger people is, if you are creating a product to really enjoy it and for your clients to really like it, you need to get into the shoes of a client. You need to play like a mind trick.
Yeah.
Okay, I am the customer of my product. It will be really important for me to use this product. I'll probably spend like half of my day using this product. What should the product be?
Yeah.
What are the features that I would like to see in this product? And now let's design these features. But it's not so simple. You really need to get into the shoes of the person on the other side. You need to use your imagination part. And I think this is where AI can help. When companies start implementing algorithms which both make long-term proper decisions or prioritize a proper set of rules for decision making, and also prevent companies from making either reckless or illicit decisions. Hey Stefan, how are you?
Hey Dimitar, I'm doing great. How about you?
Good, doing good. Just figure out the cables here. Too many cables.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you with that one. Yeah, and there are so many podcasts nowadays. I had a live podcast yesterday with Jone. I had I had him as a guest speaker for a video for I think last week or a few weeks ago, to talk about causality. He has a doctorate in space physics and so, and has started kind of his own consultancy within kind of setting up kind of causality kind of systems for kind of this this approach to solving business problems. So that's pretty interesting as well. But yeah, so had that live, like it was actually the first live stream yesterday with that. We're not streaming this live today.
Okay.
But it's
so yeah, I have the comfort of you then being able to just cut whatever makes sense.
Yeah.
Whatever doesn't, throw it away. I'm not a podcaster, you know. But it's a good experiment, and I'll be a good experiment for me. I mean,
Absolutely.
And I'll be really happy to see how it goes.
Yeah, there's a first time for everything, you know, and that's what I think is good about just trying this for the first time. There's a first time for everything. You have to just try, and then eventually, as you do more of it, then it becomes natural at one point. You know?
That's the
you
goal.
know. Absolutely. You know, I've been doing YouTube for like over or pretty much a year now, or almost a year now, and you know, it all started with me just wanting to improve my communication in general, right? I'd started a bit with wanting to start. It was right before I started to actually started my business and everything, realizing that I really desperately had to improve my communication skills to for this to actually work in practice in business, because communication is basically everything in sales and marketing. Right. So, but
that will be the big difference going forward. I think with the advent of AI, what will really make the difference between like you and your competition, or me and all the others, is how well we are able to articulate our thoughts, how well we are able to go in front of people and speak about whatever we do and whatever we want to convey as thoughts. That'll be I think, the only differentiator at one point.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're starting to see more and more how powerful personal brands are as well. That in the in the development in the future, we're seeing that a lot of the real potential and marketing and branding of businesses kind of rely on this kind of personal brand of the characters and the people who are behind actually building this, and more people and customers and people in general are more interested in seeing like these personal stories instead of just being kind of faceless businesses that you don't really know what's happening within the business or what they're doing, right? It's more about following the personal stories.
And I think that's one of the challenges in consulting, or maybe in many IT related businesses, is that people who naturally want to start a career in IT are usually they're not the easy outgoing type. They're more I don't want to say closed, but they're just not the natural communicators. And when you have to go out and speak in front of people, and even more speak in front of people that you don't see, you don't know how many of them are watching or will be watching. It's kind of really becoming difficult for many of these people. And I obviously work with my colleagues, and also I know colleagues from other businesses. They don't like. They're not the usual, fans of, oh, let's go into it.
Yeah, I get what you mean completely. I've seen that a lot with like people in general who are very focused on IT, and there are some truth to the stereotype, right? That people in IT are often are generally very kind of closed off, especially with new people, and that's the challenge when it comes to kind of getting into business, right? But like for me, it was very important to make that transition. Maybe even more so because I had challenges with that, right? That I realized that, okay, I have challenges with this, with like getting into this new kind of social interaction, but I realized that this is so important to do well in business, in my career in general, that okay, this is better to just face those fears and go into more of these situations where you are going out to these networking events, you are sending those outreach messages, you're going through all the mistakes on the way, and taking the lessons as they come, and then you actually start figuring things out more and more when you just face it and just try it out, right? And
oh yeah,
I think
it took me years. It took me a few years to realize these things. And as you mentioned, it's the same with events. Yeah, you go there, you need to be outspoken, you need to be a bit more extroverted than probably you're naturally inclined. And it took me a few years to learn how to do it, and learn not to overthink too much. And I guess a lot of people in IT are just overthinking too much. And that's also, and we're creating challenges for our clients this way, because when we are not communicating efficiently, we are not conveying the true meaning of what we do. We're not conveying our ideas, and a lot of us, I know, have great ideas. But when you're not able to communicate these ideas to a person who's more outspoken or more extroverted, like someone in finance or someone in marketing, those people are really great in communication, and they expect that the other side is on a similar level. And when you're not, you're not communicating what you do. And when you're not communicating well what you do, then that hurts the projects. That hurts the value that you deliver to your clients. And I've seen, and probably I've been also in these shoes, when we deliver great products, great features, great capabilities, and then for some reason we're not able to communicate the user-facing value of these achievements. Very often we communicate something that's totally not important for the user, but we find it very fascinating. Oh, you see how it works. Let me tell you how it works.
Yeah. I think what is interesting here, like my approach to kind of understanding this kind of phenomenon in a sense, is that when technical people are so used to kind of communicating with the computer that they are speaking the computer language perfectly, but then they don't realize or focus so much on actually practicing the human communication. And there are of course similarities, but there are with the kind of informational kind of exchange that is happening when you're setting up computer systems, you are just exchanging information. Whereas in social settings, it's not just about information. Information may be like 10%, but then you also have the emotional components and the energy components, what we call vibes. Right?
Yeah.
It's not just about transitioning information. It's about, am I getting well along with this person? Do I like how is the tone? How is the kind of nonverbal communication? And there are so many more elements to this kind of social exchange than is just from the informational exchange you usually have when you're programming or setting up computer systems. And I think that's the challenge a lot of technical people face, that they may not even realize how important also these things are, or how to get better at these things.
Oh yeah, there is so much, you're right, so much information loss during human communication. And as computer, quote unquote, computer people, we're not used to so much information loss. As you said, we're communicating to the computer or writing some code, and then this code gets to be executed exactly as you write it, without much interpretation, without much, somebody on the other side figuring out what you wanted to say. And that's completely different from human communication. And I've learned it probably several years down the line in my consulting career, that whenever we make a presentation or a demo, there is only a very small fraction of the information that gets properly conveyed and properly understood by everybody. And for each person, that little piece of information can be slightly different. And then you need to tune your communication in a way that, okay, asking what's the minimal volume of information I would like to transition or to transfer to these people. Where will I be happy? Okay, probably it's 2% of all the words that I say. If they get just 2% of that, if it sticks with them, I'll be happy. And then you need to tune where these 2% are. And initially I was thinking that, okay, the more I say, the better, because obviously everybody's just very focused on me, looking at me, and they find it really important to understand what I'm saying. No, not at all. But then it's an art. It's an art compared to what we call exact science, and we're more used to think of everything that happens around us in terms of, okay, where's the exact science of this? And maybe we, as computer people, IT people, more than many other professions, who are used to the world not behaving like a deterministic 1=1 system.
I think it's important that is so important to realize that, especially when you are communicating with non-technical people, when you are talking more, and eventually it gets to the point where they have no idea what you're saying anymore. Like everything kind of gets tuned out from there, right? It all becomes just yap, and then it's best to just stop talking and kind of get some feedback for, okay, are they actually understanding what I'm saying, or should I kind of fine tune or adjust the way I'm trying to communicate this topic to them? Because the additional complexity in this is that people have different knowledge levels, like as prerequisites for the conversation as well, and that's kind of what you have to figure out while you're having the conversation as well, especially with potential customers or clients or partners as well, kind of figuring out how much do they understand of what I'm saying, and do I need to adjust the way and change the way I'm communicating for them to actually understand what I'm saying here?
Oh yeah, and very often we are prone to thinking that we are not being understood because the other side lacks something. But my experience is it's quite the opposite. We're not being understood because we are going into much details or we're explaining things which are either quite obvious and we lose the attention of people, or we are explaining things that are quite not relevant to what everybody in the room came here for. And I think it's very often actually the fault of the speaker that he's not being understood. And if we can somehow fix this, probably the return on investment on IT projects will grow tremendously.
Yeah.
Even though nowadays I think it's quite high for many companies, quite the opposite than what the industry or the think tanks usually say, that the companies are not realizing the expected return on investment. I think they're very often, especially in my area, which is data analytics, data management, they are realizing quite a big return, quite a significant return on investment. Yeah, obviously, everybody wants this to be even higher and even higher. But I think we've kind of reached a good base level. Yeah, obviously, we need to improve from here. How do we do it? Yeah, there's 1,000 ways. And communication is obviously one way which is quite overlooked. Quite overlooked.
I think it's something that probably most first-time founders go into this make this error, make this mistake in the beginning. Both technical founders and non-technical founders in general, thinking that the important stuff is the functionalities. If I just explain that this product or this service has the best functionalities, then they will buy. Like, no, like it's about the more you kind of start for yourself and try to talk with the market about this, the more you figure out that, okay, you actually have to solve a problem. You have to focus on how does this provide value for them, what kind of problems are you solving for them, and the pain points, and that it isn't so much about the functionalities as about the actual value it provides for the customers or the problems it solves.
And yeah, there you also get into another area which is quite tricky, how you do communication through a user interface, because obviously we spoke about verbal communication and all its challenges, and then there is for me a whole other kind of science of communication through visual interfaces. And very early in my career, I read a book about efficient dashboard design. It helped me a lot. It helped me a lot create appealing dashboards that communicated the data that's inside quite efficiently to my clients. And I think this had an effect on my career eventually. But if we expand it beyond dashboards, I think there is a whole kind of a science of communication through the virtual or physical interfaces that surround us, be it a computer program or maybe the dashboard of your car, or maybe how the placement of the buttons on a device that you use. Everything is communicating something with you. And I think, in my experience, this is quite overlooked. Again, because to a large degree, the people who create the thing, the engineers, are not tuned to think about the communication part. They're tuned to think about the feature part, the workings, how to make it a little bit faster, how to stuff it with more features. And, often stuffing it with more features actually makes the product very often more dysfunctional, more difficult to use. but it's much more easy,
Mm.
much easier to stuff
Mm.
it with more features, and then every quarter you will be releasing new and new and new. It's more difficult to go the other way, to start simplifying.
Yeah.
And we're doing it from time to time with some of our products, or some of our dashboards that we create for our customers, or some of the other systems that we create for our customers. And engineers are easily lost in this exercise. Okay, how do I simplify this?
Yeah.
What do I cut? Like, everything is necessary to be here. It
Yeah.
has to be here. So
Mm.
which of these things do you cut,
Mm.
and not just keep the functionality the same, but actually improve the functionality?
Yeah.
And I find cutting way more difficult than just adding, um, both with features, or also with
Mm.
my texts. When I'm writing a text, when I'm creating a presentation,
Mm.
it's so difficult
Yeah.
to
Absolutely.
start cutting and say, okay, what's the basics
Mm.
here?
Yeah.
What's the thing that I would like to convey? You created these 30 slides. They're all beautiful. You thought about them so much.
Yeah.
You just want all this beauty to be externalized to the world.
Yeah.
Now you have to cut it. It's very often painful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a really interesting point because it has so many applications in general as well when it comes to setting up sales pages, when it comes to setting up your website, when it comes
Oh,
to actually
yeah.
trying to get people like not just necessarily to buy on a sales page or like landing page or a website in general, but also like how do you make a post on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter that is engaging and interesting? What actually ticks with people? And that often is like less is more. Shorter is better in many cases, but it has to be kind of set up in a way that is kind of engaging and interesting, and it has to do a lot with kind of consumer psychology, where how important consumer psychology is to actually set it up in the right way. Because if you set up the sales page with complicated language, really long, and nobody understands it, there won't be like most likely there won't be any sales. But if it's set up in a certain way, it's a lot more likely to actually generate sales if there are any users on who are watching the site, right? And this is really interesting how there is kind of both a science and art to how to actually get people to buy through interfaces like this.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're very, very right. Our first website was it was a huge wall of text. Like, everything I wanted to ever say about this company was there. And then I was thinking, okay, but probably I didn't explain this little thing here, for this little service over there. So maybe if the customer comes and they read very carefully, and they'll say, oh, but can they do this? And now
Yeah,
they won't find the answer. And then
yeah,
we added more text and more text.
exactly.
And then at a later point, I don't know, probably along the line with the third or fourth or fifth redesign of the website, somebody came and said, no, guys, you like, the best practice is really to have one sentence here, two sentences there.
Yeah.
Okay, and how do you convey all this complexity through one or two sentences? And I think our education didn't do us a favor at all.
Yes.
At least in the place where I live, and I guess
Mm.
in many places,
Mm.
uh, when you're going through school or university,
Mm.
they very often incentivize you for the length and depth of your
Yes.
ideas, and not for the simplicity of how you're
Mm.
conveying what you want to convey. So um, if you repeat this over a few
Mm.
years,
Yeah.
you become very, very hardwired. Your brain becomes hardwired to convey complex thoughts and to speak lengthy. And then you start your career, and somehow you find out by I I figured it out accidentally
Mm.
that we need to simplify,
Mm.
and then you need to rewire.
Yeah.
That's very complex,
Hmm.
I think.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point, and I think another factor that adds to the challenge with how education is built up is how we are being taught as well. Like how are courses generally structured? Like you are not starting with why is this important? You're starting with, okay, here's the definition. Here is the first kind of concepts, and then you're building on those concepts for more complex concepts, and then you're building on, okay, eventually, hopefully, one day you'll figure out why this is important, but you're not starting with why this is important. Whereas when you get into the real world, when you're trying to communicate your message to someone, especially in business, you have to start with why is this important. So it's the completely opposite way of actually educating and showcasing yourself compared to the way it's being taught in the schools, and that is a difficult transition to make because you have to make that realization that like how they taught in school is not how you can communicate your message out in the real world.
Oh yeah, and very often, of course, we told you respect to our teachers,
Mm,
and I value their service a lot.
mm,
Some of them were not really thought themselves how to convey ideas and how to present and how to
mm,
teach.
yeah.
And eventually we learn from these people by just replicating what we saw. We
Mm,
saw lengthy presentations, we saw lengthy explanations, and
mm,
this is what we start doing once we go into the business world.
yeah.
We solved complex mathematical problems, and this is what we're tuned to look for in a
Mm,
business. We're trying to understand the business from the point of view of a very complex mathematical
mm,
system.
yeah.
And sometimes this helps, but I would say sometimes it really, especially for leaders and for managers,
Mm,
it prevents you from grasping the overall simple ideas or trends that really matter, that really have the impact of your business. And for me, that was a challenge to learn, to relearn how to think about my business from
mm,
this very complex, systematic way of thinking, which I was taught in university
mm,
uh, about finance, about marketing, about strategies. Yeah, they had to be complex.
mm,
So I tried to create, if I go back to my first years and I look at my business plans, oh
mm,
man, they were super complex.
yeah.
I was creating very complex business plans for something which was so simple. I had
Yeah.
a couple of colleagues, so we
Mm,
were two or three consultants, and then I had a drill down or split by project, by customer, like projection, this kind of projection, then another kind of projection, top down, bottom up. And the system which I was trying to optimize for was a really simple system. And later on, when I thought about it, I said, okay, but there is really no point in optimizing this side of the business. Because even if I can imagine that I can optimize it, say, with 50%,
mm,
that will not make so much money for the business. That will not make a difference.
yeah.
Okay, where is the place where the difference can come from? Yeah, I figured out that probably this is the top line of the business.
Mm,
But I figured it out, I don't know, probably third, fourth year when
mm,
I was already managing the company. I was
mm,
able to figure out that a lot of these simple or a lot of these subsystems in a
mm,
company
yeah.
don't add up too much to the equation if you over optimize them. And there are only a couple of like larger systems or uh,
Mm,
larger processes that you need to look
mm,
for and you can improve.
mm,
Um, and it took me so many years, although I studied economics and
mm.
I think I studied them pretty well, but still, it wasn't an easy thing to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. I did my bachelor's in business administration and my master's in accounting and auditing. I had that educational background. But then when I actually started my own business, I quickly figured out that okay, most things here isn't just about following a formula in the textbooks. It's about actually getting punched in the face sometimes in the market before you're actually figuring out through experience how this is done, and that's like a decent business plan may help, but it often leads to more complexity than necessary, and actually not managing the right priorities in the beginning before you start figuring out with experience what is actually important. And when you're figuring those things out, you realize that a lot of things are maybe a lot simpler or easier to manage and to figure out when you're actually just making the right priorities here.
Oh yeah, I also see it with some of the companies that I've been working through the years, that they start creating overly complex systems of managing processes and reporting on processes, on reporting on how they manage processes, that they really overspend efforts
Yeah.
in an area which doesn't change so much, or doesn't have the potential to change
Yeah.
anything so much.
Hmm.
But I think it's an easier thing to do
Hmm.
very often, and I also have been catching myself um, trying to micromanage processes
Yeah.
because it's an easier thing to do.
Hmm.
And obviously, yeah, when you do something which is easier, but still in your head, in your mind, you classify it as management. You say,
Hmm.
okay, I'm managing stuff. So you feel
Yeah.
in control. You feel the kind of contribution that you're having,
Yeah.
and you actually don't have so much contribution
Hmm.
with micromanagement.
Yeah.
Uh, but that's a trap you can fall into quite easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And like not only does it cost you time that you should be focusing on the more long-term strategy and execution of the business, but it also kind of negatively affects your like employees or the people you're outsourcing your work to. If you are trying to adjust everything that they are doing, they don't really get the freedom to actually innovate or think outside the box either, because you are literally putting them in a box for what they can do or not. Like it can help
Hmm.
to have starting points of SOPs maybe, or like guidelines for how what generally defining is what is the roles and so on. But I think what's most important is that you as a leader serve as an example for how you want the others to work and be dedicated to developing the business in general, like giving them a reason and a powerful message to follow for working, and not just being that you are instructing them to do a job just because it's their job in a sense.
Hmm. Oh yeah, that's an interesting thought, and I've seen it so many times that organizations can serve as echo chambers which amplify the bad practices
Yeah.
exemplified by by the management. I've seen it in my company. I've seen it with so many other companies that I've had exposure to through the years.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, your bad example very, very easily just resonates in this echo chamber.
Mm.
People start repeating it. And it's mistakes, especially mistakes that seem right,
Mm.
are very like contagious,
Yeah.
and people like to replicate them, and very easily it can get propagated uh, to the whole company. And
Yeah.
very often I thought of companies like, why why should the management of a company be so important?
Mm.
Because there is always this kind of discourse that companies need to have more of a flat structure,
Mm.
that you have to have leadership on all the other levels, on all the levels, not just on the top, that the leaders need to actually empower their people with more, and it's actually not happening. And I've seen large companies that change their course, like a big structure, 20,000 or 30,000 people, suddenly changes the whole atmosphere, the whole course of a company with one single CEO change. Okay, why? And I think one part of the reason is the echo chamber, that bad practices or good practices can easily start resonating in a company. But I also think that part of the reason is that with all this decentralization talk, the corporate world still hasn't achieved much in properly decentralizing decision making. And the larger the important decisions for a company are really centralized in a very few people. And then there are so many of these micro decisions that we spoke about that really don't move the needle, and they are decentralized. Okay, yeah, you can decide how you measure your project. Yeah, you have all the freedom to decide how you measure your project, or how you spend this $100,000. But these are really not the things that matter to the company. The big things that matter are being taken decision of somewhere else. I think that's also part of the reason. And we don't have a good answer for it. And we don't have a good answer for proper decision making. That's something which I very often think about. What is a proper framework for decision making? And I have many pieces of the answer, and I'm speaking with my clients, advising some of our clients on some of this, but there is really no overall well-structured theory, if you like, that deals with the topic, and that's not something that they teach you in school at all.
Yeah. Have you read the book Broken Windows, Broken Business by Michael Levine?
No.
It's an interesting book. I recommend you check it out. Basically, it starts with a principle that basically starts with an analogy for a broken window. If you see a broken window in in a physical business, let's say as the start of an example, what is your perception of this business based on that broken window? Like, you would think that it's not a very good business. It's not taking care of its actual building. Okay, this isn't a place I want to go in general. And then he applies this kind of analogy to also a lot of other things in the business. That is not like, even seemingly small things can have a big effect on the business in general. For instance, let's say a cafe, there's loose paint on the walls. Like, maybe most people don't recognize it, but suddenly you stand in the queue and you realize that, okay, here's a bit of paint, like loose painting on the wall. What if that falls down and actually affects like falls down and is included in the coffee or something, and it becomes a health hazard or something. And like, these small things that may add up to how you perceive the business in general and may affect how you perceive the business. That is an important part of to understand for how you run the business, for how these seemingly small things can affect like how customers actually make decisions. And he especially applies, like he says that customer service is probably one of the most important principles to consider in terms of broken windows, broken business. Because if the customer service is poor, the reflection of how the business communicates to its customers is poor, and that means Yeah, you know what it means, right? It
Yeah, yeah,
means like
yeah.
customers get a poor reflection, poor perception of what is actually happening, and he provides also examples with employees, like the good and bad employees. For instance, employee if there is one employee who has kind of a poor toxic attitude or something, comes in late to work, like maybe good performance, good performing otherwise, but comes in late to work, like negatively affects the culture or so on. And if you let that happen, it affects, of course, the mentality and how it works for the other one. If this one person comes in late to work, the other people around him sees that, okay, this guy can do it, so I can do it too. But then suddenly, when that guy is taken into a proper disciplinary hearing in a sense, then and comes to work the next day, then by the end of the week everyone are on time and everything is back to usual, and that concept I thought was really interesting for how to run a business in general, because to find those little things, you have to be kind of obsessed in a sense. But it's also interesting because you realize that the people who have done extremely well in business, like Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and so on, they are really obsessed, but they got there because they were obsessed about these little details that actually makes the business tick.
Oh yeah, I like this thought a lot, and it's in a way contradicts part of the reasoning that you should focus on the big things.
Mm,
Yes, of course, I think you should focus primarily first thing in the morning on the
mm,
big things.
yeah,
And if you are in a capacity constrained situation, or you don't have enough time, you don't have
mm,
enough efforts in your team to spend on something, yeah, obviously you need to
mm,
start from the bigger things and
mm,
go down. You need to have some order of priority in
mm,
business and life and everything. But then it also speaks very well. What you describe speaks very well to something
mm,
I believe from day zero, that really everything that you do, the quality of everything you do, even the parts of your job that won't be seen by anyone, affect the overall quality of your job, affect the overall quality of what your colleagues do.
mm,
And I have one of my favorite stories. I read about it somewhere. I don't know if it's true, but I think it was Steve Jobs discussing a story from his childhood,
mm,
where his father asked him one day to go and paint the wall, or the fence around their house. It was the
mm,
fence. So they started painting the fence, and young Steve said, "Okay, I'm ready." And the father said, "Oh, let's see if you're ready." "No, no, you're not ready. So you painted it just on one side, but in order to paint it properly, you need to take it down and paint it on the other side, even where it touches the fence of the neighbor. And there
mm,
is this part of the fence that you'll never see, but a
mm,
properly painted fence is a fence that's painted everywhere,
yeah,
even the places that nobody will ever see." And
mm,
that's a principle I try to apply in our development practice
mm,
with our code.
yeah,
And I was very religious to it. I was telling this story to my colleagues and saying, "Hey guys, a properly made dashboard is dashboards where all the parts, even the ones that no one will ever see, the back end, the codes, are
mm,
properly made." And what does a properly written code look like? Yeah,
mm,
obviously it needs to follow all the principles in the books, all the best practices. It needs to be fast. It needs to be efficient. It needs to take as little resources as possible, but
mm,
it also needs to be formatted properly.
yeah,
So you need to follow some formatting principle, and not just type and dump code. Yeah, obviously the
yeah,
machine will read it as a text dump. The machine will not care about the formatting, but you
mm,
should care about the formatting, because that's
yeah,
part of the overall perfection of your creation. And as you said, the perfection of your creation, I think, affects every part of every interaction everybody will ever have with it, from your customers to your support engineers. If it's made perfect, like everybody down the line, maybe it will be an engineer in 10 years who will be trying to change your code. They'll have a perfect experience and say, wow, this was a code written by somebody who really put his all into this. And so yeah, I totally agree with this thought. And I remember, and also in the first years of after founding my company, I had a rule which seemed very right at that time, or seemed very logical, that I preferred to hire younger engineers who could be more easily taught about all these good principles than people who come with more experience, but also part of this experience is bad experience. Because I knew from teaching or training engineers, I knew how difficult it is to actually unteach something, to make you stop doing something which is a bad practice. So I prefer to teach people the good practices, because if it's like an empty canvas, you can easily draw whatever on this canvas. So I prefer teaching good practices rather than unteaching bad practices, because some of them are so sticky. And it's very easy for somebody to say, okay, good, I'll do it. I'll comment my code properly. I'll put it in order, and probably he'll never do it. So yeah, because of this aim for perfectionism, I also tried to hire younger people, and I think that was a good decision at the time.
Yeah, it's and it's a challenging dilemma to deal with as well. This finding this kind of balance between the right priorities as well as kind of this focus on solving the little details as well. That of course, especially in the starting and establishing phases of the company, like you can't do everything. You don't want it to get too complicated. You have to prioritize the right stuff, especially in terms of getting the sales and marketing to actually get clients. But also, if you are taking the approach that you want to be the best or among the best in terms of the quality, like of course you have to focus on the quality for the solutions you actually deliver to your client, and that means taking the extra step in ways like this with the quality assurance and setting it up in the right way. And that may mean to have specific procedures and kind of ideas about how to set this up, because if you are just setting up the code like 80% other people just making the code, no testing, like CrowdStrike. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah.
It's a good one.
But yeah, the general point is that, right, that in order to take the premium, take the price premium, if like you have to be the best and have for give the client, give them a reason to pay more for your services, right? Because if you're going to be better, you need to show in a sense through your services and products that you actually are better.
Oh yeah, and it's it's very easy to actually neglect it, because it's obvious that in the market there are so many things which are poorly designed that it's very easy for you to figure out that a big chunk of the efforts that you use to make a good design or create a good product will not pay off. Will not pay off in the immediate sense. Okay, let's put it this way: will not immediately pay off, because there are so many things which are really bad obviously there is a place under the sun for everybody. You can just ship a crappy product, as you mentioned. A lot of companies do it. They're very obvious, and somebody will buy it. And if you invest too many efforts into creating a great product, probably you won't see the payoff. And how on earth will you decide, or should you decide to use so many efforts into something which will not pay off immediately? And I like something you mentioned, that only people who are overly obsessed with something, with an idea, only they can do it. Only they will obsess about the little parts, and only they will be able to play this very, very long-term game. Not 1 year, not 2 years, not 5 years, probably several decades long game. When they will see the payoff. Because eventually people will know that, yes, this is a product which was designed properly starting 20 years ago in this company, because of this very obsessed person still designs products, and probably this will get people will just know it, and then it will pay off. But building your brand in a way, because obviously that's part of your brand. The quality of a Tesla or the functionalities of a Tesla is probably a part of the brand of Elon Musk. Same for Apple and for all these other companies. Building a brand is something really difficult. And then there is this clash between what we see in fashion or in consumer goods. We see a lot of action, a lot of brands or products that pop out and disappear. And that leaves us with the impression that, obviously that's a way to behave in the market. You just ship a new thing, then decide to stop it, then ship another thing. So obviously that's how the economy works. And there is a part of the economy that works this way. And then there is a part of the economy that works in a different way, which obsesses with quality. And probably it's for everybody to make a decision in which part of the economy you would like to be, whether you would like to be in this game which is longer term, more difficult, or you'd like to be in another game which is, shorter term, just reap the benefits, go away when there are no more benefits, change to something else. I think there is validity, just theoretically speaking, in both approaches. I personally like more the approach of a quality game, maybe because of something that I did early in my career, which really benefited my career. And that's an advice which I give to all the young people that start in our company, because our company, we hire experienced people, but we also hire some people with less experience, or some people fresh from university. And an advice which I give to especially the younger people is, if you are creating a product to really enjoy it, and for your clients to really like it, you need to get into the shoes of a client. You need to play like a mind trick. Okay, I am the customer of my product. It will be really important for me to use this product. I'll probably spend like half of my day using this product. What should the product be? What are the features that I would like to see in this product? And now let's design these features. But it's not so simple. You really need to get into the shoes of the person on the other side. You need to use your imagination hard. And when I was younger, I was lucky enough to be able to work with some executives. I was probably 21, 22 years old. And I worked with people who were very often like a director, senior director, or chief financial officer. And it was really interesting to me to communicate with these people, to try to learn from them. But I also learned to play this mind trick. I said, okay, now I understand you. You're the CFO of a company. Now let me imagine that I am the CFO of this company. And I will create a dashboard for myself. And it worked greatly, first because I was not just a consultant. I was for a company, I was a CFO, and then for another company, I was a marketing officer, and then for another company, I was the owner. So playing this mind trick, I had all these different roles very early in my career, and I played it really well. And it brought me so much joy because I had the opportunity to work in so many positions. You can imagine for a 20-year-old guy, 20-something, to be a CFO, to be a marketing director, to be the owner of a big business. It's a wow, it's a great thing. So while playing this mind trick, I was then able to also create dashboards which stuck with my users, and they liked them a lot. And I think this was one of the reasons why some clients, or most of my clients, or all of my clients, I don't know, nobody said otherwise. They liked what I did, and then they can approach me for more work, or probably they can give me a recommendation and say, hey, or a reference. Why don't you speak with this other guy? He needs something like that. And this really played very well in my career. And that's an advice I give to everybody. Try to get into the shoes of the other person. You'll enjoy this game. And then you, in the course of enjoying, you will also create a great product. But it's not an easy game, because you really need to play it hard.
Yeah. How do you think people who want to get more into this can kind of improve and develop their emotional intelligence to be able to do this to a better degree?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think if you're not good with role playing, I think everybody has dreams. And if in your dreams you can imagine that, okay, for a while I would like to see what it is to work as a CFO of a company, and you are in my business, it's very easy because some of our clients are like this, in these roles. Then okay, yeah, you have the opportunity to be a CFO of a company, and really don't mind the fact that you work for a different company. Just imagine. And then I think another trick which might work well is you need to be very, you need to listen more than to speak. You have to be able to just ask questions. If you turn the communication the other way around than most people do, because I think most people get into a conversation with the idea that they need to convey a message. They need to say something. No. It's not, it doesn't work like that. You don't need to say anything in most conversations. In most conversations, if you just ask smart questions, you will engage the other person, and he will give you so much information that probably he will tell you everything, how his business works, or what are the most important things for his job, what he needs to do every day. You have to be able to ask questions. So get into a conversation not with the idea that you need to say something smart, because probably in most conversations you don't have anything smart to say. Just be able to, and that's very difficult also to ask the right questions, but you need to be this kind of search. You need to train yourself to search, to find joy in searching for an answer. So if you genuinely search for an answer, if you're genuinely interested in knowing more, not showing that you know, but knowing more, then you can ask the right questions. And you also need to be able to, for a while, to be in the position of the apprentice. No matter how senior you are, be an apprentice, and that's very difficult also with for some people, with especially the ones with bigger egos. People with bigger egos find it very difficult to be apprentices.
Yeah.
They cannot place themselves as a subordinate to somebody.
Yeah.
And when you are in a client vendor relationship, you need to know that you're always a subordinate. Your boss is on the other side, and you need to listen to your boss, and you need to be genuinely interested what your boss needs to say. And then maybe at some point he'll ask you something, and then, okay, you'll say what you want to say. But it's more important to ask the questions and to understand and be an apprentice. I think that kind of mentality has worked for me quite well.
Yeah, I think that's a key thing that not many people actually realizes, that if you are letting your kind of ego get the best of you, you are really kind of putting yourself in like the challenge of Sisyphus, basically, right? You're making things so much more difficult for yourself to actually get results when you are trying to prove something through your knowledge, instead of proving yourself through asking the right questions and getting the right knowledge to showcase that you at least have done the right research to ask the right questions, and then based on that, you know how to follow, or you can follow up from there based on simply what they are telling you, taking the right questions instead of the right, like knowing everything from before. No, you're not supposed to know everything from before. You're supposed to find something you're supposed to find it out on the way.
But that's quite the opposite of what the system teaches us.
Yeah.
The system, both from school, from your education, then higher education, then to the companies, you are left with the impression that you need to know. Your job is to know. If you don't know, that's a problem. That means slower evaluation, slower career growth, or maybe risking being fired. And everything around us says that people are evaluated based on how much they know. And I find it, and maybe in some environments it works to know too much or to fake knowledge. But in many environments, I think it doesn't. It works much better to be inquisitive, to try to understand, to try to ask questions. Because if you think about it, no matter how smart you are, you're the smartest person in the world. Can you imagine, like, what's the percentage of knowledge that this smartest person on earth knows compared to all the general human knowledge? Objective knowledge. Let's put it like that. Just the objective knowledge, because there is so much subjective knowledge and subjective point of views. And if you add the subjective point of views, then this whole blob of possible knowledge expands so much that even the smartest person on earth can know a very, very, very small percentage of that. And then you can ask a question, okay, where I am compared to the smartest person on earth. Okay, probably for people with bigger egos, they can say, I'm very close, or I am that person. But I think most of us realize that probably we're not that person. And then when you think about it, okay, how on earth do you get into a conversation, especially with a client, with the idea that you know so much? And I think a big part of the answer is that you think the expectation is for you to know and to have the solution. Okay, before speaking to you, I already have the solution for you, and that's what you expect from me. I think that's wrong. I think most people do not expect somebody to have a solution for them. At least for me, it seems very odd and kind of dodgy if somebody comes and says, okay, I know you, I know your business, I have a solution for you. How on earth do you know? Have you spoken to me? No. Then how do you know? And yeah, that's the kind of like thinking framework I try to get. And yeah, it's usually quite helpful.
Yeah, I've found recently when I've tried more kind of kind of specializing my preparation for these more important kind of medium-sized companies who are like potential customers, that setting up the preparation notes, like, okay, focusing more on the qualification questions, right? For, okay, what solution, like what solutions may be relevant for based on, like, okay, what are their kinds of systems, and other kind of relevant questions based on that. And maybe in the as part of the preparation notes, there are also some ideas for, okay, if they answer something like based on their answers of this, then I may kind of suggest something like this. For instance, something in one of those meetings that I recognized, for instance, was that for instance, it was a prospect meeting about a potential ETL implementation, right? Okay, and then one of the qualification question was which kind of digital infrastructures are they using from before. I found out in the meeting that they were using AVS. And then I had in the preparation notes, okay, one of the suggestions is AVS Glue, which is kind of based on the AVS infrastructure. So I could mention that in meeting because I had that in preparation notes. But also having that kind of combination between both these qualification questions and also some ideas to build on based on the questions. I think that may be a decent approach when in these kind of more high risk or like high level prospect meetings, maybe.
Oh yeah. Now I can, when listening to what you say, I just thought about another example, that, for instance, when interacting with people that do youth services. So you sometimes do services to other people, but then there are all these cases when somebody else does services to you. And I was several months ago, I was doing a renovation to my house, and I had the opportunity to interact with lots of construction companies or contractors and workers. And it made me an impression that most of these people really had the solution to my problem before actually looking into the thing and asking the question. And they came and they said, okay, for this part of the job, or for this part of the house, or for this system here, that's the solution for you. And when I hear something like that, it's really, it tells me that the person is trying to mask something. Either he doesn't want to spend too much time with me, or probably he just knows one approach or one way of doing things, and that's what he offers me. And then thinking again to making a reference to what we do, it's very risky to be in this situation when you already have the solution without asking all the questions, without knowing all the details. You already have the solution. That's weird. How do you have the solution? Is it really so simple? So for all my pains, there is just one solution. Imagine going to a doctor, and it's the same going to a doctor. There are these doctors that already have the solution, just asking you a couple of questions. Okay, yeah, that's your problem. Here is the pill. Go home.
So
that's really weird. How do they know? And
exactly.
Both, and all, IT systems and construction and medicine, they're so complicated that it's very difficult to go to the root cause. And I think the pressure from your expectation that other people expect you to know, actually, it puts a pressure on you, because you're expected to be up to date with the latest and greatest. You're expected to know it all. I think this pressure tricks us into offering a solution quickly without asking the right questions.
Yeah,
because otherwise we think we'll look incompetent.
Yeah, and to me, it's like it has been kind of a way to qualify people who outreach to me as well. Like they want to sell me something, and then you can kind of do the quality checking of like how long have they really been in business for, or have they kind of made these kind of realizations based on how they approach you in a sense. And I had one situation where I went in a meeting with someone like this, and basically he just started kind of showing, okay, he had this old flow chart. This is your new marketing and distribution system, branding system. Okay, from A to Z. Okay, how your new marketing system will be set up, and like he hadn't asked me a single questions of what I was already doing on either LinkedIn or YouTube or any other measures I've done before, because I had started with YouTube, I started with all these other things, but he hadn't asked a single question of what I was already doing before he suggested this whole new system, A to Z, like everything of how I was supposed to do things. Like this isn't this doesn't even address a single thing of what I'm already doing. And that's what made me realize that, okay, this is someone who's completely new to business. So and I just had to
he
tell
has a script.
I just had to stop him eventually and just tell him and give him some give him some lessons that like I would like to have received those lessons when I started out in my first months of business. That, okay, this is the wrong approach. You need to actually ask questions about what they're already doing before you can sell in their services.
And on the contrary, on the contrary to this, if you think about it, it's actually so difficult to get people's attention, and get people's time. And maybe some of us are really afraid that the person on the other side has a very short attention span, and you don't have the opportunity to ask him too many questions or take too much of his time. And then you can say, well, I prefer to really shoot without looking, try to guess, try to offer a solution, because otherwise the person will get nervous and probably, hang up the phone or say that he's not interested. And I remember there was this funny story with one of my clients. There was a platform vendor for one of the big platforms that we work with, and those are companies like Microsoft or Snowflake or AWS, Anaplan, Tableau, Click. Those are big companies. And there was this sales guy, and I think he was quite high in the food chain. He was maybe a director or CVP, some sort of quite high in their food chain. So he was assigned to work with my client. We're providing services. His company is providing the platform with which we work. So somehow he got the telephone number of the CFO of my client. And he said, okay, I'll play it big. So he picked up the phone. He called the CFO and said, hey, listen, I'm the sales manager of this platform that you work with. And hey, listen, I'll take just 1 minute of your time. We can solve all your problems. And he tried to explain the problems, but before getting into this, the person on the other side, the CFO, said, wait a minute. Who the hell are you? So you just called me on the phone. You're telling me that you can solve my problems, which means I have problems. And I don't really have problems. And even if I have problems, you will be the last person who I will invite to solve my problems. So get the hell out of here and never call me, never call anybody from my company. And he hung up the phone.
Oof.
So this little blunder from the sales guy meant that for the next year, the whole platform and everything we did and everything their internal team did with this platform was put under scrutiny, very, very tough scrutiny.
Oh.
And they were asking questions like, okay, you have this project, it's an important project, say supply chain optimization. Do you really need to do it with this platform? Because we don't like the guys who sell this platform. I think that was a really bad mistake from one point of view.
A broken window. That's a broken window right there. A big broken window.
Yeah, a really bad mistake.
Yeah.
Then from another point of view, if you think about it, the way they incentivize sales in many companies is by the big deals that they make short term. Okay, this quarter, next quarter. They don't incentivize them for the long term. And that's a big problem in business, short term versus long term. How you align these two, how you align the interests of management and sales and marketing with the interest of the shareholders. And for this guy, probably he said that, well, if I make a deal this quarter, I'll get incentivized. If I don't make a deal, I won't get incentivized. If I lose the client, nothing bad will happen, because they won't fire me because the client made a decision. And I can see the perspective from which this makes some sense to the person who did it. And things like that can make sense to some of the people in business. But then it all comes to whether you would like to play the short-term game or long-term game. And that's a tough decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you are the founder yourself, you can take a lot of risk. You can take all the risk you want to. But when it comes to the point of having actually established an organization, then people who are willing to take those kinds of risks quickly become a liability, in a sense, for the kinds of major challenges it can bring to the business. You see, for instance, big scandals like with Arthur Andersen and Enron, right? Like Enron was a major client of Arthur Andersen. Arthur Andersen's got millions of euros a year from having Enron as a client, and it was risky, but they got so much revenue from it that it was just kind of like, okay, we're doing it because we're getting so much money here. But then eventually, of course, Enron collapsed. They found out that was a whole big scandal and scam in general. And then what did that lead to? Arthur Andersen collapsed, new regulations with completely new requirements for how these accounting firms, auditing firms are to be set up in general. Like it is absolutely insane, the scale of a historical impact it can have when these kind of risk factors get out of control.
The spillover, I remember that time. I was quite young, but I followed the news and then I read about the story, and it was a big scandal. But then think about it. What happened with the Arthur Andersen company? It actually got rebranded. The people who worked there continued working in a different company under a different name. Let's not mention it here. People can find out if they want to. And everything, although there was a big scandal, at the end of the day, if you look at the big picture, it seems that somehow, a few months or years down the line, everything went back to normal. The same people who were doing this continued doing other things, or probably behaving properly. We don't know. But there wasn't this risk wasn't properly punished, I think. And there are many examples in our economies where you have these huge rewards for huge risks, for proportional, disproportional risks. And then the punishments are not so great. You can think about it. You can remember probably the 2007, 2008 crisis. The banks, the institutions who were in the center of it got bailed out. A lot of the managers got their bonuses. I remember there was a picture of one of these guys just in the middle of this crisis. He received 400 millions of bonus. And the last picture of him was with a big smile, sunglasses, boarding his private jet, going to a private island where he cannot be prosecuted. And I think all these stories, they have effect on regular business people. Some people read about these stories and say, well, big risks are really well rewarded. And there's always, or very often there is, as in Monopoly, this get out of jail free card. So probably we can get this get out of jail free card. So yeah, we can take big risks. And some managers who get incentivized for this, and some managers who really become very successful with taking big risks are prone to be in leadership positions for a long time in big and successful companies, and they're prone to actually set the course of these big and successful companies, and they're prone to set the tone for for all the people working in these big and successful companies. And then there are these other people who are not so willing to take risks. And what is the end result for them? You see, my point is that if you just look at how history happens and how these things are rewarded or punished, you can see why very often our companies behave in this way, in a reckless way. And I think it's very unfair for people who are more careful to get lower rewards in business. And I've seen so many great managers, great people, great employees who are really careful with what they do. They don't get the big benefits in companies. And I think that's kind of wrong. That's something we need to fix in economy going forward somehow. I really hope that AI can help in a way by leveling the playground, by really serving in a way to at one point be a helper in proper decision making. Because nowadays decision making, although we claim that we have these wonderful decision support systems, and we have all the data, we have all the dashboards, we have all the predictive models. We have our AI tools are being developed right now, and we help our clients with development of some of these tools. But they are still not there. Still, the heavy burden of decision making, of especially important decisions, goes to people. And as we discussed, also these people are sometimes reckless in their decision making. And I think this is where AI can help. When companies start implementing algorithms, which both make long-term proper decisions or prioritize a proper set of rules for decision making, and also prevent companies from making either reckless or illicit decisions or criminal decisions also.
Yeah, true. It will be interesting to see how this will be developed in the future, because of course the people who are leading the organizations are also kind of in control of how these kind of AI models are kind of will be fine-tuned to run the company forward. So some people may be more long-term thinking and proactively implement that in how they fine-tune their models and their systems for that, while other people may be like, okay, we want these short-term results, we want things done immediately, and that's the kind of goals they're kind of instructing it for. And so it may run like either way. I suppose it depends on how they actually instruct this, but at the end of the day, yeah, it's a matter of wills and how.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting thought. Yeah, that although we think that they will be scientifically developed to behave properly, the people in Enron would actually, if they had their own AI, just press a few buttons and say, okay, give us a super big rewards, and yeah, you can risk a few things here and there.
Here are 1,000 fake invoices.
Yeah. or they could ask the direct question, okay, figure out an easy way to get a lot of money with breaking just a few laws, a few regulations, dumping a few thousand tons of poison in the rivers, but just a few thousand, and probably not in Europe or not in the US, probably somewhere else where nobody will notice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think this is an important thing to understand as well, that we can't just assume that these models will be kind of scientifically developed, that there are people with their own self-interest who will instruct these things. And like actually earlier today, I recorded a video about AI in cybersecurity, right? And here you have two different interests, right? You have the malicious hackers and you have the penetration testers, right? And both of these can use AI, but it's kind of a race for okay, who can use these tools the best to actually find these potential threats or functionalities within the systems the fastest, and actually be ahead of the game. So like the importance of will and how people actually are using this in practice. Are they using it for good or malicious purposes? That is an essential part of the picture.
Yeah, you're right. That's and it's very difficult for regulation and governance to catch up with these trends, especially in complex areas like AI. We have seen how slow and sometimes incompetent regulation has been in the area of social networks. And this has been something that touched so many people, something that we see every day, especially when it comes to politics. And still, regulatory bodies have been extremely slow. And I think social networking and everything that happens there is so much more simple than the area of AI and the possibilities and capabilities and all the different things, all the different systems and subsystems and use cases that we can just imagine that I guess regulation will be even slower there. And probably there will be an array of there will be the companies developing good AI, and there will be the companies developing bad AI. And then you, based on your preference, can go and purchase whichever you want. You can purchase the good scientific decision maker that obeys all the laws. Or you can say, hey, I would like to make an extra buck quicker, easier. Let me purchase this very bad criminal AI tool, which will help me be an even better criminal.
You know, I remember last year, I think it was last year, it was when there was a Congress hearing about TikTok and its connections to China and ByteDance and everything, that whole spectacle in the sense, because what was what was kind of interesting about that kind of event, it kind of illustrated how little they know about technology in many cases, and asking the complete wrong questions, in a sense that in a lot of cases there were some reasonable concerns with the platform, with the
Yeah.
technology, but the way they were phrasing the questions was uh, yeah, it kind of illustrated the point we made earlier in the podcast, right here, that how important it is to ask the right questions.
Oh
But
yeah.
when I was watching clips from this hearing, it seemed like completely insane, like how little knowledge or how little preparation they had put into actually doing this. Like how like the way they were asking questions about like what this technology could do was one thing, but also how extremely politicized they became when kind of asking questions about the CEO. Okay, this guy is from Singapore. Okay, he was born in Singapore. Like he doesn't have any ties to China, but he had to swear he hadn't wouldn't hadn't pledged allegiance to the Chinese Communist Party or have any connections to China. It was insane kind of what kind of allegations and insinuations in a lot of cases came up there. And I think that may be a challenge as well when in the regulation process, that especially both the politicians who are actually making the regulations like don't really understand the technology, and they have so much ego in the way to actually understand what is actually happening and developing here, because they won't actually be allowed or they won't allow themselves to actually learn how this is in practice, because they have this kind of filter of political ideology clouding their judgment on it.
Oh yeah, I remember this hearing now as you
Yeah.
say it. And yeah, I was also stunned by
Mm.
the level of incompetence
Yeah.
that was obvious in some of the questions. I
Mm.
was also pleasantly surprised that there were
Mm.
some other people who asked really proper
Yeah.
questions that really went into the nature of what is being done and what can be the harm and so on.
Yeah.
And there were the two sides. Yeah, obviously it was quite striking to see the incompetence.
Mm.
And yeah, to me it brings the topic of yeah, obviously in government and countries you have management and you have people who are in managerial decision-making positions who you expect to be competent.
Mm.
But then there is the political process which doesn't favor competence.
Mm.
It favors other things, amongst which is someone's ability to communicate.
Mm.
And now we go back to the starting point of this conversation.
Mm.
And for me, it's always been very interesting how you deal with this. That
Mm.
in business, your expectation is that people are hired and promoted based on their competence, based on the capabilities they show, on the quality of their decisions, on the results. That's a natural expectation for the corporate world.
Mm.
And then there is the government world,
Mm.
where for some reason this is not the natural expectation. Although, and I've spoken to many competent people, many successful people about this topic, and they are. Every time I get stunned that by the fact that very often their expectation is not for their politicians to have shown prior success. And my as a manager of a company, my natural inclination is to judge people, people with experience. Let's put it this way. if somebody already has a few years of experience in an area, my natural inclination is to judge him based on this experience. Okay, you worked here, you worked there, show me your results. And I'm always looking for the results, or asking questions about, okay, what were the problems that you solved? How did you solve these problems? And so on. And then when you get to the government world, that's not the expectation of people. Okay, where is the results of this or that person? Yeah, he tried something, but there were these other forces that stopped him. Maybe this is something which I hear very often. How on earth? What does it mean? I tried. Can you imagine going in a corporation with your resume, and on the interview, all you claim is that you tried this, you tried that, it didn't work, but then there are these other bad people, other bad guys over there that are preventing you from doing all the good things. How are you going to be judged on the interview? And I think the judgment will be very low, very poor, and you'll not get the job. And that's quite always been amazing to me, because I believe in free economy. Government is quite important. Regulations are quite important. They need to be here to set the rules. Now it's even more visible with all these technologies that we have, all the capabilities of these technologies, that there needs to be some framework. How we use, for what we can, for what we cannot use these technologies. But not only the technologies, there are other cases that are quite obvious, but government is needed. Nowadays, in the Western world, where we live, government is usually taking, say, between 30 and sometimes close to 50 or even more than 50% of the GDP. So that's, say, 50% of the purchasing power of a whole country goes into government. And they make the decisions how they use these 50% of the money. So that's quite important. That's at least on the same level of importance as how corporations spend their money. So we have these two worlds, and I think there should be a common understanding of how we choose the people to run these two worlds. And I think with all the inefficiencies that we already discussed for the corporate world, all these things that come from incentivizing too much risk and all the other things, the corporate world has already figured out a kind of healthy way to choose and promote people. And I think this has never happened in government. It's never happened in government. Probably part of the reason is the political process and how people choose their constituents. But also, I think there are some items to be improved when it comes to the internal workings of a government system, because it's not just the chosen constituents, the members of parliament or the president, people who get chosen. There are also so many thousands and thousands of people who work in the institutions. And I think because AI is very often comes as a topic in these discussions when you think about management and efficiency, I think there is a huge opportunity when it comes to government decisions and the use of AI, the applications of AI. There's so much to improve. And now you can think about the simple things. You can go back to this hearing in the Congress with the TikTok guy. And the people were unprepared. Yes, that was quite obvious. If they were just able to use the simplistic AI tools that are available to the mass public, all these models that cost between 10 or 20 euro. If they were just capable to use these models and, type in some questions, do a role play with the model, probably they could figure out the right questions to ask.
Absolutely.
And that's something I've tried in my practice. That's something I've also tried with a couple of clients. AI can help you pick the right questions for a new topic, for a topic that you're not familiar with, or even for a topic that you are familiar with. It can help you pick the right questions. Again, it's not on the level of AI that will take over from you. No, you're the decision maker, but you can use it as a sort of a assistant.
Absolutely.
Imagine, and that's something I say to people. Imagine that you have a very smart person who's always running next to you, always ready to jump and help. You can ask questions. Okay, this person has read a lot of books, probably doesn't remember them quite well, sometimes does mistakes from time to time. But if you know these truths, that's a sort of a smart guy that you have next to you, and you can use him.
Absolutely, and this is so powerful to understand as well, that it's not just necessarily that you get information directly, but you can ask it in a way that can make it easier for you to actually find the right questions, find the right tools in general. Something that I'm doing as well when I'm setting up, for instance, no-code automations in Make with these ChatGPT modules, is that I'm asking ChatGPT, okay, what are good ways to formulate the prompts and set up the the system prompt with instructions, the assistant prompt with an example, and a user prompt maybe for actually just inputting what will be asked on a repeating basis with this automation to ChatGPT, right? And I'm getting a great answer. Maybe I need to update it sometime to get the formatting right and everything, but the quality of the results are so much better than if I will just start to actually write all the prompts myself, because you are in practice just asking, okay, what are the best practices for actually setting this up in a way that will get me better results.
And one of the difficulties comes again from the fact that in order to use it properly, you need to get into an inquisitive state of mind. You need to get into this mindset that you don't know, and now you will figure out something. And that's very difficult for many people, or maybe for everybody. To be in a state of mind that, okay, I don't know, let me figure it out. Most people easily get into a state of mind where, yeah, I know, and now I'll tell you. And this relates both to business and to government and to private life. It's very difficult to get into this state of mind. I'm seeing it very often. I have this joke with that I share with clients sometimes, that our tools are here to show you the data that you will use to support your decisions. You already made the decision. Now you need the tools that will give you the data to support this decision. Yeah, obviously that's a joke, and obviously I'm trying to make a point here that it's not the right thing to do. But if I have funny cases in my career where sometimes years ago, I had clients that called me and said, well, here's the thing. I have a presentation tomorrow, and I need some data which will show that my department is doing great. Can you pick me up some data like this. Can you figure out some KPIs which will show that we're really doing great? And yeah, of course, that's a situation that I guess has not just happened to me, but to many other people who are business analysts.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, I was the dashboard guy. I was supposed to be able to work with all their data, and for me, it was supposed to be something quite easy. But I guess it's kind of a question that many people working with data have gotten.
Yeah.
And more recently, I'm finding when speaking with clients about their technological transformation journeys, because nowadays there is this shift, a new shift. There's our area is very interesting because it goes through these evolutions every few years. It was big data some time ago. It was going from on-premise to cloud, which is still going in a way, this kind of a transformation is still going in a way that some of the platforms that have the capabilities to properly handle the workloads that were done on premise are just now emerging, and some companies are just now being able to move to the cloud with these new technologies. But there's always a kind of a transformation that's going on, and during these transformations, companies need to choose new platforms. And for me, that's a very interesting topic, because obviously these kind of decisions, we are in the midst of these kind of decisions, and some of them affect us. So that's a topic that's been fascinating to me, how companies choose the kind of platform they will work with. And my answer is, or what I see is, they choose based on a gut feeling.
Yeah.
Most of the times. And this gut feeling can be formed by many factors. Can be formed by a presentation of a very good salesperson. Can be formed by a seminar or a large event that that they went to. It can be formed by some prior experience. But there's always the gut feeling. Okay, I feel that this is the kind of system we need, or maybe I will choose between this system and that system. That's it. I'm not looking aside. I'm not looking to all the possibilities. So most of the times people have already done the decision making. And want something to support their decisions.
Yeah, that's such a great insight. I've seen this as well. Like people make decisions based on their emotions and just really use reasons to kind of find justifications for the decision they've already made in a lot of cases. And that's really interesting thing to realize when, especially when you're doing negotiations, when you're doing sales and persuasion in general, to realize that, okay, it may help to have some good arguments, logical arguments in general, but they won't buy based on the logical arguments. They will buy based on emotions, right? That's where the real decisions are made.
Yeah. That's and again, this is such a huge area for optimization, because I think in many cases, to be fair, choosing between A and B doesn't make such a great difference in many cases. And of course, we're looking at how different vendor companies execute their sales pitches, and obviously they always have the reasons to argue that their system is so much better than the other system. But from a side point of view, I think that's been very valuable in my experience, and this is why I think we as a company are very valuable to our clients, is that we can see these things from the side and realize that very often the difference is not so great.
Mm.
So to be fair, there are many cases where choosing A or B doesn't make much difference. It's the same thing or similar. But then there are these other cases which are just stunning, because the difference between decision A and decision B is huge. And there's so many factors, and you see it so obvious that the course of an entire area in the company will get changed if you choose this way. And then if you choose that way, the entire course will be completely different. And that means a lot of investments, a lot of money, a lot of upskilling and training people, new infrastructure. That means a huge change. And then it's stunning to me that sometimes the decision is being taken based on, I have a great example. A few years ago, one manager told me, hey, we are choosing this platform here because this is the platform for big companies in our area. They were in a specific industry. So this is the platform for big companies. This other platform, it's for small companies. Wow. How come?
Yeah.
because both are objectively, both are big corporations and both serve the same market. And for me, it's very obvious. But then she says, no, this is a software for big companies and this is a software for small companies. Just that, without any reasoning. Or in another case, another manager said, hey, this software here, it's for European companies. And we are an American company. So we need to choose this other software, this other platform that's for American companies. And now think about it. Okay, the first case, big versus small company, you can argue that it's theoretically possible. Okay, you can argue that theoretically that was not the case with my client, but theoretically, it's possible to have a platform that's better tuned for larger corporations and their needs, and another platform which is better tuned for the use cases of smaller companies. That was not the case, but you can argue it's theoretically possible. In what universe is it theoretically possible to create a software for European, maybe in some, if you're dealing with legislation and but that was not the case. We're speaking about data analytics here. Okay, let me just make it clear. We're speaking about data analytics here. In what universe you can have data analytics in the US and data analytics in Europe being different? And that was not something which I could explain reasonably, because if you're starting from this point of view where this statement seems very reasonable, I cannot find a way how to get from your point of view to another point of view. I mean, probably with given enough time, and if you are listening, probably we can get there, but in a normal circumstance.
Like the only example I can or hypothetically imagine is the case of like privacy regulations, right? GDPR, CCPA, different regulations and different systems for how to ensure compliance there. But other than that, if there aren't involved in the actual privacy regulations, then it's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah, that was not the case. Yeah, that was not the case. And we were speaking about, there was an on-premise system. It wasn't even a cloud. On-premise system. But what I'm trying to say here is some of these big, huge decisions are very often being taken in this way. And it's amazing to see that in a modern corporation, they can make such a decision based on this kind of reasoning. And everybody, or 90% of the people who will be affected by this decision know that this is not a good decision. And they voice their concerns.
Mm.
They say, hey, by the way, can we consider this? Can we consider that? And no, the decision is still being made because the leader, the manager, is just not the listening kind.
Yeah.
It's the kind of manager who says, it's my way or the highway. And there's so many of these people and they're entrusted by big budgets. They make the decisions that affect so many professional lives. Even if you think about it, like your professional life can be, if you're an employee of this company, can be affected by this decision, and there is nothing you can do, because when the corporation starts to go in this direction, it's like a big river that just pulls all the boats, all the employees with it.
I think that's a good way to end off the podcast here. It's almost been 2 hours now. Been really fascinating, but again and again, we keep coming back to the same takeaway with the importance of listening, right? How important it is to listen, ask good questions, and have this kind of build this kind of inquisitive mindset to do well in your career, in business, and a lot of other things. So yeah, it's been amazing talking to you for the past 2 hours here. I'm sure a lot of the reader or a lot of the viewers will appreciate all the insights you've shared. If I'm sure there will be possibilities for having you on some other time as well to continue this great conversation. But yeah, is there anything you want to plug of your LinkedIn website, anything?
I will. I'll be happy to see the results. I hope you share it with me, and I'll be really happy to continue the conversations with you. It's been really a pleasure. I wasn't the one asking the questions. I was the one talking. Although I said it's important to ask the questions, but I guess this was the expectation for me this time. Really. Great points that you made during this conversation. I really liked them, and I'll be happy to stay in touch and continue.
Yeah, sounds good. So to everyone watching, be sure to check Dimitar out on LinkedIn, check his website, and maybe even there are some things he can do for you if you run a business and need some help with the business analytics and everything that Dimitar can provide. So yeah, again, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and looking forward to next time.
Looking forward. Thanks, Stefan.
See you.